I became
this sober vet.
Don't live, don't live, don't live.
Our mission is to normalize sobriety with veterans who are using and abusing substances in a harmful, self-medicating way. Welcome, world. We are back. This is TSV episode 11. I'm your host, Joe Urick. And before I introduce my co-host, I was thinking the other day, I know that I deployed with Dr. T and we were overseas for Iraqi freedom and enduring freedom, but I was thinking that was like 20 years ago. So I haven't really done any background on her since. So I decided to sneak into her computer. I got some of her clients' info, and not that I stalked them, but I did run up on them without them knowing, and I kind of asked their thoughts on Dr. T. So here's what 5 of them said. First one said, "You have a way of making everyone feel welcome and comfortable." Second one said, "I always feel understood and seen when I'm around you." Third one was, "Your honesty and integrity are qualities I truly value." Fourth one is, "You have a unique perspective that I find incredibly insightful." And the fifth one said, "What are you doing in my shower?" So just want to say, Dr. T, you've been vetted and you've passed. So I would like to welcome my co-host, Dr. Teresa Thomas. How are you?
I'm well, Joe. Thank you so much. You are hilarious.
I'm surprised no one reached out and was like, "Who is this Joe?" All right, today's guest has been an advocate for sobriety for over 500 podcast episodes that he started in 2014 when he was only 6 months sober. He is a coach, a father, a true influencer. He has coined the term "contains emotional nudity" in his intro to his podcast. That got me fired up the first time I listened. I'm talking about the one, the only, Shane Raymer, a.k.a. That Sober Guy. Welcome, Shane.
Joe, great to be here, man. Thanks so much for having me on. Stoked for the Sober Vet podcast, man. Good stuff,
Absolutely.
Bro. So
cool. Appreciate having you on. I've been splurging your podcast the past couple of weeks. And the first thing I noticed, I'm going to be honest, is you seem like a bro, like someone I could hang out with back when I was drinking. Now that I'm sober, you just seem like the everyday cool dude. And you're kind of what I want to be for the veteran community. Like, I want people to view me as that's that cool vet, you know?
What a compliment, man. I appreciate that. And I don't say that lighthearted. Like I think being authentic and being your true self is just a gift. And when we do that, man, we are able to connect with people. And it really wasn't until I gave up drinking and made some changes in my life that I was able to start finding out who my true self was. And that's still an ongoing process, man. But yeah, thank you. I do appreciate that. Nice.
Before we get into your sobriety story, 2 things that kind of stood out to me in the last probably 10 episodes I watched of yours. Adam Jablin and his Hero Project. I thought that was very cool. And his story was cool too. Just listening to how he's on fire and how just excited he was about everything. And also when you did the Lamb of God singer, Randy Bly, and you guys both connected on the lost childlike spirit, that really resonated with me because number one, kudos to you for starting your podcast 6 months after you quit drinking, because when I first quit, it took me a year to gain my confidence back. So the fact that you started at 6 months is freaking amazing.
I literally had no clue what I was doing, man.
you dived right in.
I just kind of went for it. Yeah.
No, that's a beautiful thing. So kudos to you. And I hope all my listeners check you out and listen to your podcast because they are all awesome. There's not one that I didn't take something new away from. So yeah, kudos to you. Yes, so again, Shane, if you could just kind of start with your story, because I don't know if my listeners know you yet. So if you could just tell what your drug of choice was and kind of how it began.
Yeah, sure. So, well, let me say this first, man. Just, your podcast in particularly speaking out there to veterans and stuff. I just want to say something. That's something that's really, I'm not a veteran. I was never in the military, but myself, our platform, I honor all our veterans. So thank you. And just for those out there listening, man, I know that, the whole veteran community, there's a lot of substance abuse and there's a lot of things that those men and women have to deal with. And so I appreciate, being able to hopefully share some of my experience with all of them out there and everyone who's not a veteran, of course, too. But it's just an important thing. So dude, thank you. Yeah. So, gosh, I mean, there's so many parts to this. So let me just try to break it down and make it, simple. Gosh, I was born into a family that had already struggled with addiction, with alcohol in particular. So growing up was a bit chaotic. It was pretty unpredictable, and played sports. Athlete growing up, skateboarded a lot, BMX, all that good stuff. Man, the 80s and 90s were so fun. Like what are the best decades? Like, gosh.
Yes. That was the best time, Generation X.
It was so fun. It was so free. Like you played outside, your buddy's dad whistled or the street lights came on when it was time to come home. There was none of these dang phones and social media and all that stuff interrupting us. So I had a lot of good, childhood memories of just playing with buddies and out skating and, playing baseball, and parents always supported me in that. But, the other side of that coin, my parents were really young when they had me, and they didn't have a lot of life experience. They were 17 and 18 years old. They didn't finish high school. They got out, started working, and had, this baby to take care of. And so we grew up in Northern California, Solano County, Napa County. And like I said, my parents were young when they had me, not a lot of life experience, and alcohol was a real main, factor in that relationship growing up, and particularly with my dad. And man, it was chaotic at times. I always know that my parents loved me, but they didn't always get along, and there were there was a lot of time where I just didn't want to be at home, especially as I got into my early teens. And so what was funny is I'd always made a like a pact, I guess, with myself and with some of my buddies from the neighborhood. Like we were never going to drink. We were never going to smoke. Like we were never going to do any of that crap, because we didn't want to do that. We knew that it was not good, and we saw some of our parents doing it, and we didn't want to do that. But, by the time I was 14, 15, and just being a kid and feeling kind of lost and feeling angry, and not seen, really not heard, that was an easy way, between peer pressure and trying to be cool and fit in. It was a really easy way to escape, I think, too. I can remember that first couple of times, like drinking one in particular. And I think my dad had some tequila in the garage, and like, I was like mad about something. I'm like, I'm just going to drink that tequila. And I remember he had a shot glass there, and I just pounded a couple shots real quick. And I just remember being so warm, and it was just like everything escaped in that moment. And it was like the first time that I think I felt relief over some of the stuff that was going on. And so I always say, even so this day, yes, I had an issue drinking, had an issue with addiction, but I really had an issue and still continue to have that issue sometimes with feeling and with the art of escapism, because that's really what it was at a young age, and what it turned into as I got older, and not having healthy tools to be able to deal with life situations and emotions, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
But yeah, that progressed really fast. I think before we started recording, I had mentioned to Joe, I was raised Catholic, so always had a foundation of God. But from a religious standpoint, that religion, I was just kind of told what to do. It wasn't really a relationship with God. It was more like I did catechism, confirmation, and, first communion, did all the things. And I'm really grateful that my parents and my grandparents and my family like instilled that foundation in me as a kid. But as I got older, I started to go, in the opposite direction in that, for sure. Yeah, gosh, as in those teen years, though, big into the music scene, the punk rock scene was a huge outlet for me, going to shows in the Bay Area, and we would travel down to Southern California, and moshing was like a good way to get out a lot of energy and animosity without like fighting.
Oh yeah.
Because you like kind of fight, but you don't, but everyone's brothers. And it was usually pretty cool every once in a while. But so that was a really fun time. The punk rock scene and the music scene in the mid late 90s, early 2000s was really, really cool in the Bay Area and Southern California. And just that whole scene was awesome. So I had a lot of fun there. But with that, I did have some friends who were straight edge, but at that time I didn't really want anything to do with that. There's a lot of straight edge kids and like hardcore bands, but I saw that going on. I was like, that's cool. I don't really want to be a part of that. I want to be a part of this crowd who's like wilding out and partying and just going crazy. And I thought that's kind of what you were supposed to do. And was in a lot of bands and played music and, really wanted to pursue a career in the music industry. But man, just the habitual lifestyle and no like skill set, no idea of really like the business side of things. Let's just like write music and get jacked up, and that just doesn't work. It doesn't last, And man, I kept, I was working and holding a job and stuff, but if I kind of fast forward to my, early 30s, I was drinking every day. I was miserable in my own skin. I was married to my wife still today, Jess, and who's amazing. And we had our daughter, and I was just tired, man. I was just so exhausted of the up and down and the back and forth. And I really felt like I felt two things. Like, number one, I felt God had something more for my life, and not just for my life, but for my family's life. And I was wasting it all with, by the decisions I was making. And then I also felt like something really bad was about to happen if I didn't make some changes. And so between kind of those two, and I had tried this many times before. So if anyone's listening out there and like you've gone through this, it's that yo-yo thing. And a lot of dudes go through it. It's like, man, I knew I wanted to quit, and I would quit for like 2 weeks or a month. I think I almost had a month at one time, and then I'd go back. And there's just like this constant cycle, and it was just exhausting. It really was exhausting. And I finally just figured out and realized like I can't do this on my own. So I asked for some help, and I went and got some help. And man, that'll be 12 years ago in September.
Outstanding. Congratulations.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks.
Nice.
Appreciate it. Pretty insane some days, but it definitely changed the trajectory of my life. It changes the trajectory of our family's life, broken cycles, broken curses, all that stuff, which is probably the biggest thing for me, is just that generational curse, breaking that off of, so my kids don't have to. And I'm not naive enough to think that just because I'm sober, my kids are going to be like, hey, even though my son tells me, Dad, I'm going to be sober just like you. Most amazing thing ever. It's so cool to hear.
Nice.
But eventually, like my daughter's in high school, they're going to come to a point where they have to make their own decisions,
Right.
And it's going to be up to them. And I just pray and hope, and my wife too, that like we've done our best to instill good values and decision-making and common sense, and, so they can make that decision and in that moment. And even if it's the wrong one at the time, they're going to know, they're going to feel like, they know what's right and what's wrong, so.
J-Dog is your local veteran owned and operated junk removal company. We do everything from a single item pickup to a full estate clean out. We also do small demo, sheds, playgrounds, jacuzzis. Our pricing is based on volume. Estimates are always free. We also do our best to keep items out of the landfill. We have a warehouse in Willow Street where we take repurposed items. There we are able to donate to veterans in need, and the last Saturday of the month, we open it up to the public garage sale style so everyone can enjoy these items. Put some local veterans to work. Call J-Dog today. 844-GET-JDOG or 484-467-1424. So when you first quit, just like when I first quit, and when everyone out there who wants to quit but does that yo-yo back and forth, what are some of the hardest things that you kind of didn't expect to either go through or face when you quit? And what did you do to help kind of get over them? So people that are scared of what's on the other side, because we always talk about how good it is on this side. We rarely talk about how hard it was to end up on this side. So what are things that were tough for you, and what'd you do to overcome that?
So like rehab was the easy part, I think. I mean, it was
Mhm.
weird being in a room with a bunch of people you don't know. And so it was definitely strange at first, but there was a lot of good that came out of that. And I really soaked everything up while I was there. But I think coming back and trying to come back into like this normal routine and normal life, my wife and I have known each other since sixth grade.
Oh, wow.
And
Mm.
yeah, a long time. I had a crush on her in sixth grade. We never dated in high school, but we ended up, kind of getting together when I was like 20, 21. So we spent a lot of time together and we've known each other a long time. In those early years, we only knew each other from alcohol and I mean, not, you know what I'm saying? But like when we had a good time, we went to dinner, we drank. Like everything we did, it always involved that, was family, friends, whatever. And so when I got sober, it was tough to come back and be like this new person without that in my life, because I'm super confused on who I am now. And then
Mhm.
trying to like be in a marriage and have a young daughter at the time who was 2 or 3. That was really difficult. Just trying to figure out like, how do we go on dates now? How do we conversate, and open up to each other? So there was a lot of learning and there was a lot of therapy and group support and meetings, and it was a lot, and a lot of people don't understand it. Sometimes family, friends, they don't get it, and that's fine. I wouldn't expect them to, but that, and not to say they weren't supportive either, but
Mhm.
it's kind of tough sometimes. You kind of feel a little bit on your own going through some of that. So that was tough, like the relationships stuff with friends and like and my wife. And then it was also tough, like to figure out how to have fun again. That
Mhm.
was a big one. And I know that stops a lot of dudes in their tracks, because they're like, man, I actually just did a podcast about this. It's like, how do I go to an A's game or a baseball game and have fun? How do I go to a concert? How do I go to a wedding, to a party, to a funeral? Like, how do I do that without alcohol? Because it's everywhere and that's all I've known. And one of the questions I propose is like, ask yourself, am I going because I really want to go see these people and go to this party, or am I going to drink? Am I going to the game because I really want to watch the game, or am I going to drink? And my guess is it's probably a little bit of both, but like cut the alcohol out of that. Does it sound as fun? Do those people sound as fun to be around? And, so it's just things like that you start thinking about, and you have to find other ways to relax. You have to find other ways to have fun. And I think, I'll wrap this up right here, but I think one of the best ways to do this with the fun thing is you have to go back, what you mentioned about Randy Blythe, when we talked about this, that childlike spirit. You have to find something that you once did when you were young, when you were free, when you were connected spiritually, even whether you
Mhm.
knew it or not. So like for me, like we'll just take an example, like riding a bike.
Yeah.
Like maybe you haven't ridden a bike in 20 years, like go get a bike, and if you really love to do that, or you really love to skate, like don't hurt yourself, because we're getting old, I know, but
Get some
like
knee pads and
yeah,
a helmet.
get a helmet, get some knee pads. Don't be going too crazy, but like find that childlike spirit, and there's a lot of freedom in that. And when you start practicing and getting better, like I tried surfing for a few years back, hardest sport I've ever done. It
Mhm.
literally kicked my ass, but like it was so challenging and so fun, and it gave me something to like work towards. And it's just a good way to figure out how to have fun and how to change routines and do new things. So
So finding things that occupy your time, that's definitely important. Absolutely.
mhm.
So there's a lot of sober people out there. Like, what made you want to become the advocate for sobriety at the level that you are? Because you're huge in this world.
Gosh, that's a good question. Well, I was driving in my little Chevy S10 single cab stick shift with no AC in the middle of August, commuting like 4.5 hours,
Oof.
like
Ooh.
like total. And I was like, 5, 6 months sober at the time. And a friend of mine said, listen to this podcast, Trip Lanier, the new man. And I said, first, what's a podcast? And then I figured out what it was, and I started listening to it. And Trip is a friend of mine now. And at the time I didn't know him, but I was listening to his stuff, and it was just awesome. It was so motivating and positive. And it's like, man. And so I started looking for sober podcasts. This was in 2014. And there wasn't anything. There was I think there was Dr. Drew, he's been around forever, icon right there. And there was an AA podcast. But there wasn't really anything else that I found, and there may have been at the time, but I couldn't find it. I didn't see anything else out there. And so the more I thought about it, I said, well, man, there's not really anything out here. And also I've been hiding this for so long that I'm tired of hiding it. And I just want to talk about it. And I want to let other people know that they're not alone in it. There's a lot of people struggling with it. And man, maybe we can help some people just by sharing some stories. So that's kind of how it started, how it kind of came up. I've tried to quit probably 10 different times, like, believe it or not, just because it's a lot sometimes, just the constant, it's a lot of work, and there's a lot of ups and downs, but I've met a lot of great people, and I've learned so much and continue to do so. But I think the reason I haven't quit, I think God's got a bigger plan for this platform and for, our lives. And I'll just keep doing it as long as it keeps serving a good purpose. And most importantly, as long as I have fun. Like, I have a lot of fun just sitting here chatting with you guys, and hopefully it helps some people out there. And, that's kind of the path that I'll try to stay on and if God says otherwise one day, then it's like, all right, I guess I'll hang it up. But, for now, I'll just keep going. But,
nice.
Yeah.
Well, outside looking in, you are a natural at this. It definitely shines through you that you are on fire for this, which is huge. You're a true inspiration to me because when I decided to go on this path, I did the same thing you did. I started looking up sober podcasts, and some are kind of like not so much over my head, but not engaging, if you will. They're just kind of boring, that talk about the scientific part of being an alcoholic. But like I said earlier, you're like a bro. Like, I could see hanging out with you after work, you know what I'm saying? Just chatting you up at wherever. And like, it really resonated with me. So that actually brings me to my next question. So you're over 500 episodes deep, and this might be tough. Out of those 500 episodes, can you give me like a top 3 or a top 5 things that resonated with you the most?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I should probably think about this a little more, and maybe even make some notes for future stuff, because there's so much good stuff. There's so many great guests. And I don't do this because I guess I'm kind of scared of it, I guess, to go back and listen sometimes. Like, I don't ever really listen to my stuff. Like, occasionally I will, but I think one of the biggest things before we get to some of the guests is like to watch. If I think back, there's been this whole like transition in different seasons of the podcast and of my process, I guess, too. And I remember just being so scared at one point to talk about God, to talk about Jesus, to talk about like my faith. And I felt like I was kind of hiding that in a sense, even on top of, because we learn like, oh, you don't talk about, not everyone agrees with God, and that's fine. I don't really care. Like, to each his own, do what you do. But like, I realized that like I was holding that back a lot. And so I think especially over the last, couple of years, it's been really, really neat and really freeing for me to go through that whole transition. Like, I used to have a really terrible mouth too. Like, even if you go back on the first like couple hundred podcasts, like there was so much F-bombs, and that's part of the reason I don't want to go back and listen to it, because it makes me kind of cringe sometimes. But at the same time, like, I also understand that was the process. So I don't beat myself up for it. That was like God molding and shaping me like into which he continues to do. So I think that's probably one cool thing. And then as far as guests, I mean, gosh, we've had so many great guests. Like Trip Lanier was a great one, just because he really inspired me from the beginning to start the podcast. Just from hearing him. My buddy Seth, he's one of my best buds. He helped me get sober in the beginning because he had got sober about a year before. So he's been on a few times. My wife has been on quite a few times, and she kind of gives the other side of the perspective. That's why you had mentioned something about your wife telling your story, Joe. And I think that's so cool because, the spouse is such an important part of all this. And sometimes they tend to get overlooked just because of, we're the ones struggling and going through all the stuff, when their side of it is just as important. And it's important to see it through their eyes too. gosh, yeah. I'm trying to think who else. There's been a lot of great guests. I mean, Randy Blythe was great from Lamb of God. I had a lot of great feedback, and people reach out from hearing his story, and he was just a madman. Just, yeah. So, but yeah, I know that's kind of all over the place. I think that it's really hard to pin down like one specific episode, because there's so many good conversations on there, but definitely blessed to be able to network and just connect with so many people. And I'll say this, one of the things I do miss was we used to do a lot of live shows and live podcasts, and I did a lot of conferences at live like behavioral health events, and that was so much fun because you got this experience of like connecting with people on the podcast and then also in person. And so we put out a lot of different live event stuff back in the day, kind of pre-COVID, and who knows, maybe we'll move into that again soon. I would love to do that, but that was a really fun time too.
Are you or do you know a veteran who is struggling with substance abuse that could use some motivation? Have them tune in. Look, they won't change until they're ready to, but if we could cause a crack in the dam, it doesn't hurt to listen. If you are a sober veteran that would like to share your story and hopes to inspire others, please contact us at thissobervet.com. Show notes and more info could be found at thissobervet.com, and be sure to check us out on social media. We'd love to connect with you. I was actually just helping an Army buddy of mine that we deployed with who's struggling with alcohol. He just checked himself into the VA yesterday. And the one thing he called me, he was like, dude, like, how do you do it? He was like, you're a business owner, you're a father, you have so much going on. Like, how did you become sober? And I was like, well, I'd like to break things down to the simplest form. And I told him my strength is in my choices. I was choosing to open that beer and put it to my mouth. I'm choosing not to do that now because it doesn't serve me. And by doing that, it allowed me to have all these little wins that now built my confidence up to the point now where I know I don't need alcohol. I never want alcohol in my life. And the freedom it gave me, because before, it literally was ingrained in my daily DNA. On the way to whatever event after work, I would stop at the beer store. If I was going to an event to watch a sporting game, like everything involved me stopping and picking up beer. So now that I don't have to stop and I could just go to these things, there's such a freedom that I think people who are still struggling with whatever they're going through don't understand how freeing it is to not be chained down by, well, I got to get a drink. Well, I'm not going there because your uncle doesn't drink. Like, I'm not going to sit there for 4 hours at a family event, like you're free from all those chains like that. And that's one thing I never even considered on my sobriety journey, is how excited I would be for this freedom. Like, is there anything that surprised you about your sobriety journey that you never even considered?
Yeah, that's such a good point. We don't see how wrapped up, and we don't see how much control alcohol really has over our lives, because it's just the normalcy bias of it is just so big. Like, and we talked about that, I think earlier, like just or I did another time, the media, like the hype of everything. It's just, it's always there. And so, when we're going somewhere, we don't realize sometimes the power that it holds over us, and releasing that. It's kind of what I was saying, like with the concerts and stuff too. Do I really want to go there, or is it just to go to drink? And you start realizing that, like, man, a lot of the stuff I do, like if I wasn't drinking, I probably wouldn't even really like it. It's so freeing when you finally don't have that chain like connected to you when it's broken off. And that was definitely a realization. And there was a lot of freedom in that, in the first, still till today, but definitely in like that first year, as you're kind of learning and going through this whole process, there's a big piece of letting go involved in that, and acceptance. And like, that's not, because you still have those tendencies. They're still there. And even one example of that is, man, I used to drive, I didn't have a license, I didn't have insurance, I didn't have registration. And so I became really good at like driving, and like I was always checking my mirrors, and I'm watching who's behind me. Like I'm always very cautious around, because I knew like I was not following the law and I could get in trouble. And I mean, gosh, probably for the first 2 years after, I still drove I had insurance, I had a license, I was trying to take care of business, but I still drove like that. Like and that's just one example. Like, you still have habits and you have things and they take time to break. Like I drank for just about over 17 years. So it's not going to change overnight. It's going to take some time,
Mhm.
to do that. And I think just being patient and being honest and having a mentor, a sponsor, a coach, a community, that is huge. Like that is one of the biggest things, is having that support system, whether it's your immediate family, but it's good to have people outside of family too, that
Yeah.
get it and that are going through it, too. So I think that was one of the biggest realizations, like, hey, I don't have to do this on my own. Most people don't do it on their own. And like, I have to be responsible, take responsibility, and go out and be a part of some sort of community. I need to put myself out there. And, there's fear in that for some people, but man, I'm telling you, like when you use that fear to your advantage, and put yourself out there, God does amazing things. And it's almost unbelievable. Sometimes you go, man, that's crazy.
I'm really glad that you bring that up because as men, sometimes it is frowned upon to go to outside help. My wife suggested that I see a therapist when I first quit drinking. So I did. And one of the conversations that always stands out with him was I asked him about NA beers because I was like, I missed the bubbles going down my throat and everything. I was like, what do you think about NA beers? And he was like, well, that's kind of like being at full mast, putting a condom on and not having anywhere to stick it. I was like, oh shit. So he was like, I do not recommend it. So for that reason, I've never tried a NA beer. Just curious, what's your thought on NAs?
Man, it's funny. They're not like, I don't drink them all the time, but I actually had an NA beer last night, believe it or not.
No way. Okay.
There's a company called Athletic Brewing Company. And that's really the only NA beers I've had a couple other ones like over the years or whatever, but whatever. Beer is beer. I never really drank for the taste. I drank to get intoxicated.
Right.
So
Yeah.
there's that, number one.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes in a social setting or out, like I'll have one. Last night we were at a friend's house and they were having a couple drinks, neighbors, and I had some that have been in my fridge for months. And I said, oh, you know what? I'll bring one over. And I'll take a dip sometimes too. Take like a chew every once in a while,
Right.
one of the vices still, so like, it just depends. I usually my go-to is soda water, little cranberry juice or coffee. I think it's different for everybody. Now it probably, I don't think I touched an NA beer. Man, so maybe like four years ago. And I don't know in particular reason why I think that I did. I know in the beginning, the first probably 5 years, I was very conscious of that. I definitely didn't want anything to take me backwards.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that it just depends on where anyone's at spiritually, mentally, emotionally, like what are your intentions behind it? Like, am I drinking an NA beer to like try to get that? Like, that's probably not good. That's probably not a good thing.
Right.
So everyone's a little different, but I think it just depends on the person, where they're at, what their intention is. And, that's probably a good way to look at it. Am I spiritually fit in this place? And if I want to do an NA beer, if that makes me feel good, great. I know some guys who quit and they have, one in particular, I think he just hit a year and he drinks NA beer all the time. Like, I mean, that was just his replacement and it worked for him. I'm not saying that would work for everybody, but you got to kind of check your gut and do what's best for you, I think.
So you touched on this a little earlier, but I wanted to ask, so with the amount of lives that you have touched and with the inspiration, you being a ray of light, I feel like that's totally a gift from God. How has faith been a part of your journey?
Yeah, thanks, man. I really love that question. And it's been one of the biggest parts, if not the biggest part.
Awesome.
Quick story. I mentioned I was raised Catholic. When I finally got to that point of desperation that I described earlier and just exhaustion, first I went to my wife and first I went to God and I said, God, I can't do this anymore. Like, please help me. And then I went to my wife and my buddy Seth, who I mentioned earlier. And I went and I sat down with my wife. And I knew this was like going to be my last drink, and like poured like a huge cup of like just straight alcohol and drank it and was like, oh my God, I need help. Like, And so thankfully my wife, in my moment of like, just totally surrendering, was like super supportive. And so that was good. It was a good, I remember feeling it immediately lifted off me. I just felt like God just took this like massive weight of the world off of my shoulders. Like I could feel it. It was crazy.
Nice.
And then we went home. And then the next morning I woke up and I was supposed to make some phone calls to get some help. And all the crap starting in. Like you're don't be weak. Like you got this. Like you're not as bad as that person. Like you don't have 3 DUIs. You still married. Like you still have a job. Like you're good. Like no one's going to even think you have a problem. All this crazy stuff. And so now I've already told my wife and my best buddy, like what's going on. And now I'm having all these like alternate thoughts trying to pull me back. So I grabbed my dog. I'm like, I got to go for a walk. So I took my dog on a walk. And as I'm walking down the parkway by our house, which usually really busy parkway, it's just like totally silent. There's no cars. And I'm walking and I see this book in the middle of the road, like up ahead, probably like 20 feet, 20 yards, whatever. And I'm like, man, what is that? So I'm walking up. And as I get closer, I notice it's this like messed up, like torn up Bible just sitting there in the middle of the road. I'm like, whoa.
Wow.
And I walk right past it. And then I kept going. I'm like, I'm not even going to whatever. And then I just heard, go pick it up. So I stopped, I turned around, I went back and I picked it up. And like, as I was picking it up, I just felt God's presence. And I can't really remember if I like heard him or felt it more, but it just was saying like, go get help. Like, I got you. Like, go, you're doing the right thing. Like, this is it. Like, you're here. And so I immediately went home after that. I took the Bible. I still have it. I went home and I got on the phone and started making some phone calls. And that kind of put me. So that there was that spiritual awakening in that moment that I had with God right there. That was kind of the start. And, it's been an up and down process for sure. A lot of questions. I struggle with a lot of doubt. One of the books I'm reading right now, it's called The Case for Christ by Lee Strober. They made a movie about it too, but it talks about a lot of the evidence of how the Bible was written, like the Gospels, like where they came from, how do you legitimize them? And I think like the normal person brain, the human being brain, for anybody who likes to critically think and use common sense, like, dude, there's two things. I'm either like batshit crazy because I believe in God, or I'm 100% right. Like there's no middle ground in between.
Right.
And I realized that it's nuts sometimes. So that's been a process and it still is. But I think that without God, without a spiritual awakening, without something to understand that I don't have to carry that weight of the world that was really had me just in this dark, dark place. That's where the light shines the brightest, and it started there and I'm just going to keep walking towards it.
Dude, amen. That literally gave me goosebumps. When you said that book was the Bible, dude, that hit.
Yeah.
That was
Me
awesome.
too. Still, I've told that story, quite a few times, but yeah, it still gives me goosebumps till this day because it's almost unbelievable. Like I almost don't want to tell it because it sounds like it's BS. I'm just like, how did that happen? But it literally happened. And what's funny, I still have the Bible because there was a church by our house at the time. And we were having a garage sale in that same neighborhood at an old house we lived at. And I had this lady come by and she goes, oh yeah, my family, somehow it came up that church over there. And the person whose Bible it was like her nephew or something. So I figured out I don't know how it got, if someone threw it out the window or if it fell out or what, but
Wow.
yeah, I don't know. I think his name was Andrew. I still have the Bible. Andrew, you ever hear this? You can have the Bible back. I would really like to do it. I think at this point, kind of mine, but
wow.
Yeah, crazy, man.
That's outstanding. So Dr. T, question for you. So say Shane came to you the day after you found that Bible and was like, I need a therapist. Here's what I've been doing so far. Can you help me? What would your advice be? What would you tell Shane to do?
Oh, sure. Absolutely. I'd say to Shane, well, it doesn't seem like anything happens by chance, right? That there is a reason for this. So what are you willing to do? What are you wanting to do to change your life?
Yeah, I love it. What's your why? That's such a great question.
Yes.
Yeah.
What's your why?
Yeah.
Absolutely. and then we would go from there. Had he not been in rehab before, we would discuss the possibilities of rehab. We would look at what the support system looks like so that he would be able to thrive in rehab, then continue from there.
And you're so lucky, just like I am, to have a spouse that's very supportive, because that's tough. Because when I had
Mhm.
Katie on here, one thing that really resonated with me about her story was when we go through it as an addict, we pass out and forget stuff. We have like these blocks of our lives that we just don't remember. They
Mhm.
remember every single time you're passed out. And I'm just like, damn, like that literally hurt me when she said, I was like, ouch. I was like, that's tough.
Mhm.
Yeah.
He's like, do you remember that 6 months ago on a Tuesday
Yeah.
at 2:33
Yeah.
in the afternoon? You told me, and I'm like, what?
Yeah, I call her an historian. I was like, you're always bringing up old shit. Like, when did that even happen? She's like, 2 weeks ago. I was like, oh, wait.
That's funny. I know. That's great, man.
So, Shane, to say I appreciate and respect you would be the understatement of the year. Keep being a light, brother, and thank you, thank you, thank you so much for being a guest today.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for having me on. I just want to tell you guys too, like, just keep up the great work, because the sober community, and particularly with veterans, is so important.
Yeah.
And there's so much work to be done in that space. And this is just a great platform to do it. So I'm just excited for you guys, and to watch the podcast grow, and just keep doing it, man, doing the next right thing. And that's, God works in that. So excited for that. And just thank you for letting me, be a guest and share a little bit. And hopefully someone out there heard something that helped them today. I mean, that's the main goal. So thanks again, man.
Absolutely, absolutely. Just one thing, Shane, our battle buddy is heading into the VA.
Mm.
Speak to him just for a moment. He's tried, he's tried, he's tried.
Man, just like, you don't have to do it alone. You don't have to do it alone. And God sees you. Like, he sees you, he feels you, and he knows that you're, the sacrifices you've made, and that maybe it doesn't all make sense right now,
Yeah,
but he's got you. And so I just, you don't have to do it alone. Change is possible. And just be you, just be
that's
you,
it.
and put the work in,
That's
one
it.
day at a time, a little bit at a time. It's going to be all good. My name is Shane Raymer, and that's how I became that sober guy.